could have. I could have.
It takes one idea to change something. I walked outside and I said I wanted a garden bed. Now this whole property has become this food forest of something beautiful. The idea that I am proposing to you today is called TIAG, and it is based on the concept of a coalition. The concept of a coalition, this is what a coalition is by definition. An alliance for combined action, especially a temporary alliance of political parties forming a government or of states. There have been in history coalitions that have run entire nations. Coalitions of parties, for example, political parties can run entire governments. The power of a coalition is incredible. Now, if you could imagine a series of individuals, every individual, joining the same thoughts and level of thinking that a coalition requires to work in unison and in team one with another at the level, control, or drive a government, the people would have so much power. There would be so much ability for people to move forward. So that's kind of a surface level of what I'm going to share with you today. This is how I'm thinking that we should move forward as a society. And I really want to pose this idea because it makes the difference. So in permaculture design, the goal is to render an anti-fragile property. This property right here, for example, just this little dot that I got on the screen, follows all 12 permaculture principles. Let's just pretend it's a property that's designed very well. It's already been implemented. Now it follows all 12 permaculture principles. And I'm not going to read all those off. But if it followed all permaculture principles, it would be known as not just a permaculture property, but an anti-fragile design. And that's really where we need every home in America to be established. Now, if I could give you a visual, this right here is Lulu's garden. Some of our harvest on the left side, the raised beds that we build, and a little makeshift trellis my wife threw up with sticks. It cost us nothing, and we had so many tomatoes coming off of that. But if you go to the store, you got to buy those tomatoes for a ridiculous amount of money. They are way less nutrients. They're depleted in so many things. I don't even know if I could list them all. And then whatever nutrients they do have in them comes from synthetics. They're doused with chemicals, fertilizers, all kinds of different things. And then they get to your shelf and they charge you. So now we're looking at this trellis here. You can't see all of it because the picture was taken when they're green. If you zoomed in, you'd see a whole bunch of green tomatoes on that. But that was built on a hugelkultur bed. And this is a permaculture tool, a permaculture technique, where you use organic elements to form a nutrient stable and nutrient sufficient, and even more so over year by year garden bed. And every year it gets better and better and better. With that one hugel bed right there, all of the harvest on the left side could grow on that. And the raised beds, the property here that we have at Lulu's garden, it was really important to me to make sure that we didn't just design a plan for the property to have its own food, right? We also need to have all the rain catch. We need to be able to have the food, water, shelter covered, right? But then where's the wellness? And so we've designed into the property areas where we would be able to just hang out, have some zen, have some peace, do some free write or journaling out in the forest somewhere. And this is only a 0.87 acre little property. If you look at it as the county plot, they say that it's like 57 because they take, I think, 15 feet from my street all the way in, which is a ridiculous amount of property that they have in their jurisdiction. So actually it's pretty smaller than that, but our yields are fantastic. So now if we had this concept, right? So let's say we didn't just have food, water, shelter, peace, and this atmosphere, but now we need a surplus. So this property can yield more than just can supply for us and the family living in it. What if it could also be profitable? What if the neighbor could accept some of that yield? And now we're not just providing for ourselves on this little property, but we're also feeding our neighbor. Now imagine, what if your neighbor did that? And then his neighbor did that, and then his neighbor did that. Now what if all the way down your street, you had these anti-fragile homes street-wide? Here at Lulu's Garden, we don't just do raised beds, we actually help other gardeners get established by offering seeds. We have a series of different things that we do in partnership with my mom and some other folks that we know. Some of you probably already know her through the seeds. But we focus on giving people the tools to do what I'm talking about tonight, right? I think I skipped ahead a little bit, but we'll jump right into this anyway. So this is another option of design that was actually done in Evanston, Wyoming. And it follows the concept. So all of our designs, right, they follow from water access and structures, and that's where the beginning base map forms. At Lulu's Garden, we followed that same pattern, and this is the wood chip garden I just told you about. And that tree that planted there was actually one of the first things that we did on the property there. And so now, where I get my passion and my fun is I jump into these properties, right? And so now you see the little green dot at the top of the screen. This regenerative garden is based on perennials. It's based on perennial food. So then this one property, right? So here's the concept. I hope I've given you enough of the ideas to consider what it would look like if an anti-fragile house at your property, your house, even if you didn't have an acre or you didn't have 12 acres, if you had half an acre or a quarter acre or even less than that, you have enough room to catch rain, to grow food, and to have surplus. It's just a matter of your design, your specific needs, and there's really no barriers. If you live within a regenerative paradigm and you're limited because you live in an apartment, well, look across the street, there's a whole bunch of grass, or there's a whole field, or your neighbor's got this property that's a degenerative lawn, and now you have the opportunity to walk across the street and help him, and now you share surplus. And so there's this regenerative paradigm that you can exist in, or you can look at things in a space of lack. Or maybe you're already existing, and this property right here is going to be one of the next few slides that I'll show you. And you're already in the rural areas with acreage or an existing permaculture farm. And we'll get into how that plays into this idea here shortly. So now picture this as an urban home, just one permaculture property in an urban setting, right? Now that anti-fragile home has the ability to influence its community. And through duplication, it can help move its model into its immediate community. So now your street, like I said just a little bit ago, your street can be this anti-fragile home. Now you're influencing your neighbor, then you're his neighbor and his neighbor across the street, until eventually your entire street is full and littered by permaculture properties. And that happens because you led by example. Happens because you did something, like we said in the beginning, maybe you were conscious of circumstances around us and you were aware of them, and so you decided to take action and do something for your personal family. You went outside and made a garden bed like I did, and then maybe that exploded. Now you have you wanted to go do it on your acreage. And so now you've got this whole big operation out in the county. Whatever your level may be, you have an ability at whatever capacity it is to influence your area. And so in this demonstration, I'm giving you a street example. Now imagine if that duplicated even further. I am introducing to you a concept called TIAG communities. TIAG is a network based on the principle I already shared with you about the Mentors Coalition. So now if I had these streets, right, let's say that in my town, I have a little tiny town, it's really not that big, but if my street here at Lulu's Garden, right here, had this ability to duplicate its model regenerative paradigm to my neighbor and its neighbor and its neighbor, then that street and then that street and that street, eventually now what happens is we have this whole community. Now imagine if that community all enlisted into the same philosophies of give and take, trade, barter, share some more, this cycle that we can exchange one with another. Now imagine if that city wasn't just a town of a bunch of individuals, but let's say the whole city, really the whole community got on board with this paradigm shift. Now you have this influencer speaking for you. Maybe now you've got this ambassador in your area, or maybe you've got an actual set of things that you're doing to get the community involved, helping people understand that you can do this for virtually free, or helping people understand that you could dump a whole bunch of money into this and get a full-on profession, or whatever level you want to do, wherever you want to come from to be, right? Now let's say those communities, now let's call them TIAG communities. If anti-fragile TIAG communities existed all throughout a county or all throughout a city, let's say. So now we have inside this city, we've got regions. There's a TIAG community over here. There's a TIAG community over here. There's a TIAG community over here, now over here. And my personal vision, I should have shared this a little bit earlier, but my personal vision is a food forest in every yard and a mentor in every home. That is my life's motto. Those are the two things that I know that I can help make an impact with, and that's where I lead from: mentorship and regenerative models. So that being the case, now imagine these regions are the way that they are. Now imagine it's not just the regions inside or towns inside, neighborhoods inside, it's the whole city really has been encompassed by this community participants in this paradigm. Now, if we had the ability to move this anti-fragile TIAG city into the influence that it could pose being that level of an entity, or just because the people really run the show, we now have the ability to influence other cities. So now there can be this barter and trade, not just from you and your neighbor, or from your neighborhood to the next neighborhood, but now the city can trade with the city next to it, and the agricultural zone between it all would be virtually obsolete because the homes could provide their own food. They're catching their own water. Maybe there's community wells. Maybe somebody took the initiative and bought an empty plot of land and really just dove into the thing and provides for the people who don't have any land at all. And maybe they're diving even further into this and going into more regenerative models where now they've been a kind of a herald of the concept in their whole area, right? Maybe this person's being the leader for their zone. So now this ability to barter and trade between cities is expanded. Now, this concept is super simple because it starts on a personal level, your backyard. Then it can expand into your influence because you led by example. And when you've already led by example, you become a mentor. A mentor is, by definition, really, is a person you trust with advice that works. A person you trust with advice that works. That's a mentor. So now if you exist within that mentorship realm, what you've already done, if you put a tomato seed in a cup and set it on your window and it grew, now you can mentor somebody in how to do the exact same thing who lives in an apartment and doesn't have the ability to grow something. Or maybe you're doing full-on acreage and you're developing these communities of your own, and you have an entire permaculture community in a space that you have ownership of, or some business partnership. The scale can be unlimited. And now you exist within the professional realm because you're able to reciprocate that education to the person behind you. Now it can go through homes, communities, towns, cities, all the way up to the entire nation, eventually being led by the regenerative paradigm. Our problem can be solved pretty easily. Jeff Lawton said that every problem in the world can be solved in a garden. The concept is not just that you need to grow food to be happy. It's so far beyond that. Permaculture isn't even a garden. Permaculture is a design science, and its fabric really is in the implications and the ability to move and manage agriculturally productive ecosystems. And so a garden is kind of the framework, kind of the, well, not even the framework, it's kind of the foundation, cornerstone. But there's so many other aspects that we can plug into it by utilizing that model. And I don't think I have it on here. I had a really good picture that I was going to show you, but we got to get out of the concept of looking at the nation like it's falling apart. We need to put some roots in it. If a taproot, for example, reaches deep down into the soils, one of its jobs is to anchor down. It anchors down that tree, and now when the heavy winds blow, it hits against that leaf layer, that canopy, and it doesn't tip the tree until something takes place and that taproot is severed or broken or rotted or eaten away by bugs or whatever may have happened. And then now that tree is unstable. What happens when you clear a space all around a field and leave just one tree? Now that tree, who didn't build the resilience to take the wind by himself, gets knocked over in a storm. I come from the place that if we could bind together and find a model that worked, we could cause this barter and trade, this reciprocation of virtually a closed loop economy between permaculture properties all the way around the nation. And we could become a green nation. Really, the concept of green nation in media is so skewed. It's a terrible concept. It's based in sustainability. But what are we sustaining? Rob Avis just said this in the Verge Permaculture course I was just talking about. He says, what are you sustaining? Why do you want to stay in the sustainable paradigm? We're full of chemicals and toxins and media bombardment and advertisements, and we're drifting away from the planet itself, and even our very biology is being questioned. We're coming in with genetically modified things of all sorts in science today, and we're running into this technological age. Like, what are you wanting to sustain? Is that what you want to sustain? I personally don't sustain that direction. I would like to move forward into something more regenerative. And so I am aiming for this truly permaculture nation. Now, the opportunity that I want to present today is based on my company, United Works. I don't have all the answers as to how to do this just yet. The concept is unity. As we work with our local green professionals, our local permaculture designers, our local regenerative ag guys, our local installers, landscapers, construction, whatever their profession may be, even consulting. Maybe it's not design. Maybe they don't want to implement anything. Somebody just has a skill to consult in business or even government, whatever their level of niche may be, whatever yours may be. What I propose is that we make ourselves available professionally to the network so that we can become not just nationally influential, but globally influential, and have a mentorship that spans outside of our own front yard. And as I said before, Jeff Lawton quoted, "All the world's problems can be solved in a garden." It really can. There's a level that I don't understand because I'm not an economist. I only know so much and in my specific experience and education, but another guy who's been doing things maybe longer than me can answer those questions that I can't, and vice versa. So if we utilize this concept of a regenerative nation and a closed loop economy and a network where we can barter and trade and communicate and leverage one another, that's really where the anchor can be dropped, and we can feel that stability, and we can send the taproot down, right, and bear the winds of the storm everybody's feeling brewing. I talked to somebody just recently, and what they said was they felt like there was this increase in this like heaviness overhead, and they were bothered by that, and they said, I don't know what to do about that. Well, this is what we do. There's a level where we can join forces and take ourselves to this level of camaraderie and support one for another, where we don't have to be kind of feeling the drudgery and the questions. So I propose that we form what is known as the TIAG network, and we make ourselves available professionally to it. And I come from a place of having, speaking as a presenter on the idea or the concept, or even professionally as a businessman, but really I'm opening the floor. I just want to see this idea off the ground.